I want to talk about now. Let's talk about Ben Sinnott, who is his teammate at Kansas State, a tight end who I did not watch over the summer, but has had a
You
nice
didn't watch
season
him?
thus
You
far.
slacker,
No,
man. You're a slacker. I
I
actually didn't watch
watched a
him over
lot
the
of
summer
tight
either.
ends, and for some reason, I don't know why, I just didn't get to him. I don't know why, but 6'4", 245 pounds, got a nice frame, a little stumpy, not a super long guy, not freakishly long arms. He's not a guy that you're going to say, well, let's throw him a jump ball in the corner of the end zone. No, that's not him. Sanat, though, do you have any background on him or anything that can enlighten our listeners?
He was a former walk-on, so he was a kid that had to literally fight for a scholarship offer. He was not a scholarship level player early on in his career, chose to walk on at Kansas State, and he's just been like steady Eddie improving over the last few years, Joe. I mean, 2022, he had kind of his breakout year as far as from the receiving game, but he's been involved as a blocker in the offense for several years now, and he has just slowly developed into a very good college football player who has obviously NFL potential, which is why he got a Senior Bowl invite. I was going to pull up the Molesto report because there was a couple interesting tidbits on there for Mr. Cooper Beebe, Kansas
Like
State.
in terms of his physical side. So while you're pulling
Yeah.
that up to talk about Sanat,
Yep.
I have seen him described as an H-back fullback, and I don't know if the NFL really totally utilizes that position that much anymore. And I think that he's a tight end. He definitely is a tight end. As I
Yep.
set up and said here, the length stuff shows up for me. And that's why I'm not like super, super bullish. And I don't think he'll be a top 5 tight end for me, or maybe he'll be that 5th tight end after I've watched enough guys. He moves really well. I was really pleasantly surprised. He's fluid. He's got fluid hips. He runs really good routes, and he's got a little bit of a yak capability. I wonder what his 40 time is. I don't think that he's going to be a
So,
blazing fast one. What do
so
you
I
got?
was looking at the Blesto reports. Sorry to cut you off. And he
No, you're
is
good.
6'4" even,
Oh, that's
245
good.
pounds. He
That's
does
good.
not have a arm length measurement, but I agree with you based upon watching his film. I do think that his arm length is a little bit below average, so it's not great. Honestly, you know whose body type's kind of similar to is he's got a little Michael Mayer-ish type of body, in my opinion. Like I think there's a little
Yeah.
bit of similarities there because Michael Mayer also didn't have great arm length, but he was just a pretty bulky type of frame, around a little over 6'4" he was. They had a mid third round grade on him from Blesto in the preseason, Joe, and an estimated 4.6 flat in the 40. So
I
they
don't see
anticipate.
that. I
Yeah, I
see
don't.
more 4.7, like
I was gonna say like
mid
four
to
six
high
eight,
4.7.
4.67, 4.7 flat, somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah, I don't think he's a blazer. To your point, I actually do think he's because you look at his body type and you would assume that he's kind of probably a tight athlete. And I actually thought he changed direction pretty well. Like I didn't think it was
Yeah.
bad. I thought it was okay. Someone could say he has a quietly expansive route tree.
All right,
Now
stop
that's
it.
shade. Now
Stop
that's
it.
shade.
Stop,
Now
stop
that's
it.
shade. That's shade.
You're such a
Well, that's
dick.
conversation for another day. I know, man. It's fine though. But he is a quietly pretty loose athlete. I'm saying unironically now. He really can change direction well in space, which I actually think that he's not just a short to intermediate route runner. Like I think that he can work the seam a little bit. I think he can run some option routes, some different types of things that an offense is going to need. I do agree that I don't think his straight line speed is phenomenal. I think it's solid, for the NFL level as a tight end. But one thing I will say is that yes, you can attach him, you can detach him because he plays a lot of H-back in Kansas State system. He's a heck of a blocker, man. He's a
Really?
really, really. You didn't think he was a good blocker? I mean, especially in space on the move. I thought he was a really good blocker, and he works very hard in line as well. So I don't think he's necessarily a
Okay.
dominant inline blocker, but I think he's solid to good inline blocker and a dominant blocker in space, man. So I think that he is a guy that you can use on the move a little bit. He reminds me of who didn't necessarily pan out in the NFL as well, but he's still in the NFL and he still contributes. Max Williams, that was with the Arizona
I like
Cardinals. I
that.
think he still is. That came out of Minnesota a few years ago. Similar-ish type of profiles, man, because he's going to have a sticking point, right? Max Williams never got to the upside of being a second-round pick that he ended up being. But Ben Sinnott, I think, really has another high floor similar to Cooper Beebe that we just talked about because he's going to be just a try-hard, good effort blocker, work really well in space as a blocker. He's going to catch everything he should catch. Like there's
Yes.
not much inconsistency to his game, right? Like there's some tight ends that we're going to talk about in this draft cycle where it's like talent is bananas, but like it's just so inconsistent. Like it's just not there. Ben Sinnott's like one of the easier sells and one of the easier just translations to the next level. Is he going to be a star? Probably not. Is he going to play though and be a good contributor to a tight end room? Yeah, I think at worst, this kid's a really good second tight ends and maybe a low end tight end one down the line. But at worst, he has a sticking point in the next level.
So to address the blocking thing, I do think that the intent is there, and I think that he's a very willing participant as a blocker. We get a lot of tight ends these days that are just half-assing the hell out of it, and they look soft. I think he's physical. I think he's a physical blocker, but
He is physical.
what drew me off on him is that the lack of length prevents him from being like really impactful. And then a step further, he's not a really strong athlete, like he's not. When we talk about good blockers and to put them in that high level blocking category, I need to see him finish some dudes. I need to see him like really drive some people off the ball. And I didn't get that. I think he's more of like a screen blocker, like a basketball player. He just kind of gets in the way and he gets the job.
I don't know, man.
Blocks like a good receiver would block.
He puts some dudes in the dirt out in space though, man, because they use him on a lot of like sweep stuff. They use him on some screen game. They use him out in space. Like I think he does really well on the second level against linebackers, safeties, and then the occasional corner from time to time. But yeah, I agree. I think that in reach situations against some really long defensive end or really long defensive tackle working from the backside on zone, is he going to struggle with that based upon his length? Sure, yeah, but also, why am I asking Ben Sinnott to do that, though? You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you should be asking him necessarily to do that stuff. I think
it's funny that Kansas State was asking him to do that. That is funny.
Again, man, it's like the Cooper Beebe thing playing offensive tackle. It's like, why is Cooper Beebe playing offensive tackle? Because he's the best that Kansas State has. Like, that's just, come on, man. That's it. So Ben Sinnott, really solid football player. Kansas State feels like they always have this type of guy too, man. Like they just always have this like H-back that's just like a solid player. What was the one kid the one year? I'm trying to remember his name. He was actually really good. Averaged like a crazy yard per catch. They also had Gronkowski's little brother. I think it was Chris was the one at Glenn Gronkowski. Glenn was the one that was at Kansas State, and they had another one as well. They always have these like very impactful H-backs, but I really like Ben Sinnott for the stay power he has on next level.
For his projection, I think he hit the nail on the head for his description as a receiver, somebody who's going to do well in space, somebody who's just going to provide like a nice outlet for a quarterback. I think that he's going to be a really good tight end too in the NFL. Maybe he's a spot player to take over that number one role when there's injuries, but I don't think there's really much more than that. The physical limitations, I do notice them, and I think that's going to hinder him from being like an elite, impactful, highly drafted tight end. And with that in mind, I agree with Blesto. I think that this is an early third to early fourth round pick, somewhere in that range. I don't think he goes any higher. I think that there's going to be a valuing of more physically talented tight ends that are in this class. And it's a pretty good tight end class, but third, fourth round, top 100 pick for me makes a lot of sense for Ben Sinnott. Going to be impactful on special teams, going to be impactful as that second tight end, but I don't see a world where he's anything more than that.
So he is, I agree. I had a top 150 grade on him. I think that he's going to be at worst a fourth round draft pick. I think he could sneak into day 2 as a third rounder in some type of range there, because again, we fall in love too often with just what the ceiling is of a prospect. And we forget that the floor matters a lot to NFL teams, because Joe, we're going to do another show here. We're going to talk about a kid that's a little bit of a boomer bust type of athlete, right? Where it's like NFL a lot of times does not have the luxury of developing these types of players in a long period of time, right? So that's why the Ben Sinnotts of the world are very valuable, right? Like his ceiling might not be as high as some folks, but he's going to come in and he's going to play. And an offense coordinator is going to be like, all right, I'm good to use this kid as a tight end 2 on the next level. So I agree. He's a high level tight end 2, very valuable member of a tight end room, maybe a partial starter at times. Like Brock Wright started some games in the NFL for Detroit last year. Like that style of tight end, as far as upside is limited, but he can do a fine job in what role you need him to do, but he can do an exemplary role in a committee approach from the tight end position. So I like Ben, man. It's good football player. Good player.
It's good enough to wrap us up on at Joe DeLeone, at Rise and Draft. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back. Make sure you check out Bet Online for all of your sports betting needs. For anything that I do betting related, I go on over to betonline.ag and I use promo code BELIEVE50. BetOnline has all of the latest updated odds for the NFL and college football seasons. Anything you need, whether it's futures, live in-game betting, no matter what, your football betting needs are met at BetOnline. And again, make sure you use that promo code BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50 to get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.